Welcome into WKYT News at 5:30. I'm Amber Philpotts.
Good evening. I'm Bill Bright. We're glad you're along. Kentucky State Police released their annual Crime in Kentucky report for 2023 today. While the report shows the statewide crime rate has remained stable, there are some reported offenses that have seen a significant uptick.
The two serious crimes that saw the biggest increases were human trafficking and animal cruelty. WKYT's Mariah Conjito talked with the Woodford Humane Society about these findings. It's our top story at 5:30.
According to KSP's 2023 report, animal cruelty cases went up 35% from 2022 to 2023. Here at the Woodford Humane Society, they say it's sad, yet not all that surprising.
We have seen in the last couple of years a lot of neglect with the animals that are coming into us. Whether they're owned or stray.
Per Kentucky State Police's report, they say the rise in animal cruelty cases may be because people who are reported for animal cruelty oftentimes are abusing multiple animals at once. In 2022, they say there were 734 cases of animal cruelty across the Commonwealth. In 2023, there were 991.
We think a lot about abuse as like this dramatic thing, like dogfighting or like hitting an animal, but a lot more commonly, you're talking about neglect as a form of abuse.
Beth Olson with the Woodford Humane Society says most of the dogs they take in are underweight and haven't had proper day-to-day care. She says most of the time, however, these dogs haven't gone through an official channel where there's been a court case.
Part of that is because the animal welfare laws in Kentucky are not super strong, so it's hard to make a prosecutable case for something like just neglecting your dog.
Though Olson says neglect can not only be fatal, but it's part of the reason why shelters face overcrowding issues.
You can just fail to care for an animal so badly that it dies.
Olson says in Woodford County, animal control responds directly to animal cruelty cases, but when the dog is no longer being used as evidence, for example, that dog comes to them.
I would say likely that a lot of the animals here have had kind of a rough beginning to life.
Olson says it's frustrating when people continue to get dogs they can't care for properly.
The shelters are easy to villainize because we're the ones that have all these animals, and we have to say, well, we can't take more, or we have to say, you know, I need homes for these dogs. I can't bring anybody else in. And we have to be the bad guy when it's not the mess that we're creating.
Mariah Conjito, WKYT.